recapping what transpired, what Brad Treliving had to say, what were some of your major takeaways from today?
Brad's a good politician. No doubt about that. He can manage those situations very well. I think you got a real sense of how the last week has been concerning to him with everything that's gone on. I think you got a sense of how he felt about how the team lost in the series against Florida. I also get a sense that he understands exactly what's wrong with this hockey club, and he's going to take some time to use his staff and try to fix it, so that this team doesn't miss the playoffs next year.
What do you think some of those, I mean, he mentioned the DNA change that's needed, but what are those DNA pieces that this team is lacking right now that puts them over the top?
Well, Dave, I'll tell you what, I mean, I don't think it's a secret. I think they lack leadership.
Yeah.
I think they lack, you know, I do a lot of work in Winnipeg. I do a lot of work in Edmonton. I don't see an Adam Lowry on this roster. Doesn't have to be the best player, but could be the best leader. And I think there's a, you know, he uses the word DNA. I might use the word gravitas. I don't see any gravitas with this hockey club, and I don't think the fans see that. And so for the last 5 or 6 seasons where the result is the same, it tells you exactly what's gone on and how it's gone on. And now they've got to find a way to have some gravitas. I think they thought they got a little bit by hiring Craig Berube as the coach. They probably did, but Craig can't play anymore. And now they have to find players that have ability and leadership to make a difference.
And it's funny hearing that quote. All I could think about, we need more dogs. We need more dogs. Like it's funny you bring that up because that's sort of the feel I got. And then very, very complimentary to the Florida Panthers, and I think understandably so. But I think they have to be a bit reactionary to what that Panthers team has a bit, John, and what the Leafs don't, right?
Well, listen, the world of the Atlantic Division, the world of the Eastern Conference goes through Sunrise, Florida, until further notice. And it might be more than, guys, get to the realization, it might be more than 3 consecutive years in the Stanley Cup final. That team is not old. That team has unbelievable leadership, unbelievable talent, and it's that combination that makes it all work. You know, that's the challenge that, you know, that Bill Zito and Rick Dudley and all of the other people with the Panthers have to maintain that level of play, and continue to win. But they also have some great building blocks. When you look at Barkov, when you look at Tkachuk, when you look at Forsling, when you look at Bobrovsky, the Leafs don't necessarily have those same building blocks, but they do have some that should point them in the right direction.
Some of those pieces may be changing, John, this in the next few weeks. You know, Tree talked about conversations with Mitch, conversations with Tavares. Those are going to pick up after they go through their internal process of evaluation. Are you an advocate to keep 1 or 2? And are there other pieces that have been, everyone talks about core 4. There's been some talk now of Morgan Riley's, you know, maybe he's popping up in anything. Like, is he a player or an asset that you would look at possibly changing in addition to 1 or 2 of Mitch or JT?
First of all, by the way, Dave, I think that Brad's best answer was his shortest. When he was asked about are they prepared to guarantee that they're going to offer contracts to both Martin and Tavares, and his answer was no.
Yeah.
I think it was a great question, and I think it was an unbelievably honest answer. So I don't follow this team on a daily basis. I do have lots of friends within the company. I do know people around the club. I watch them all the time. I'm a bit more of a hard ass than most people about it. I would not re-sign Mitch Marner. I would not re-sign John Tavares. I would consider moving Austin Matthews, and I would certainly have a discussion with Morgan Riley about is he happy? Because you have to have when you're paying a player that amount of money, when you're giving him that opportunity, you have to make sure and ask the question: are you happy, Morgan? What can we do to make you happy? And that to me is a big part of that equation.
Effectively, you're ready to blow this bitch up. I like that, John. I really appreciate that. On Sekeres and Price the other day.
I'm not. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
The Matthews piece is the biggest part for me, because the other ones could happen organically themselves. The Tavares and Marner thing could just happen on their own if offers, right? So the thing about Matthews is I truly believe he's a great player, but I also believe you can get a lot for him. If we can, if between Austin and Judd Molden's agent and the club, they can work through his no move clause and find a way to make this hockey club better. It's funny. I don't think Brad said in his press conference today, which was interesting, is our number one goal is to win the Stanley Cup. And that's not a criticism. He just didn't say it.
No.
But I think the ultimate goal is to win the Stanley Cup. And I think that in many ways, the Maple Leafs are a combination of a really good business and a public trust. And the public trust part is now saying, we don't trust you anymore. And we need to find fixes. This group cannot win the Stanley Cup. Fix it. Fix the group. Find a way to do that. That, to me, is what this is all about.
Plain and simple. And I wanted to get to the point of view on Sekeres and Price the other day, intimating that you think Sam Bennett winds up either re-signing with Florida or in Toronto. Why do you feel that way, John?
Well, first of all, the clip, it wasn't taken out of context. The question was, should the Canucks invest in Sam Bennett as a free agent? And my answer was, for the people of Vancouver, because there's lots of talk in Vancouver too, just like there is here, don't waste your time. If Sam Bennett is going to play hockey next season, it is only in two places. It's either going to be returning to the Florida Panthers, which obviously he's been very successful, or he's coming home. That's it. There are people even within the Panthers organization that are concerned that Sam might have already made his mind up, that something might happen with the Maple Leafs, and they're hoping that they can still convince him to play in Sunrise.
What would that ticket be, John, for a Leafs club? How do you think that might play out financially? $17
million a year.
I don't know, Dave. I'm. You guys do a really good job on your website and when you're on radio on Sirius, talking about dollars. I'm not as much inclined to do that because I just don't know. Right. Would the Leafs have to overpay for him? Yeah, they would certainly have to overpay for him. But this is a guy you talk, Nick, you talk about the 17 number. He's coming off a deal for 4 years that only paid him $17 million. This guy has been grossly underpaid for a long time. Grossly underpaid for what his value is. So he has every right to try to get as big a ticket as he can. And the other part, and I know we said this about Morgan Riley, the other part of it at his age now, it is time to be happy. That's why John Tavares came here, was to be happy. Come home and be happy. It didn't work out with a championship, but John Tavares has loved his time for the 7 years in Toronto. And I do think that there are some Toronto-born players, some Southern Ontario natives, that still have the dream of winning here. It is an amazing allure when you think about it. When you think about managers and coaches and players always being able to say, wow, Wouldn't it be great to have the parade in Toronto? Could you imagine what we would be able to do? And that's, to me, that's the reality. What every one of these guys that has roots in this part of the world thinks about if they ever consider playing for the Maple Leafs.
John, big question. Is there a guy in Dallas waking up today that's ever wondered that? He's the captain of the Edmonton Oilers. Ever wondered about that, you think? Answer.
No, I
Come
don't.
on, Johnny.
No, I don't. I don't.
No.
I see Connor re-signing in Edmonton.
Yep.
And I see him re-signing in Edmonton. David, I think you might have had this on Saturday morning. And I've thought this all along. When Leon signed, when Leon signed his contract, that was what's supposed to happen, was that Connor's going to sign too. They have an amazing thing going there.
Yeah.
They have a fantastic facility. They have an owner that is very giving to the players. They have a great lifestyle. Connor and his wife Lauren have built an unbelievable place to live in Edmonton. I know it's hard to believe for some people in Southern Ontario, but Edmonton really does have a ton to offer when you are the best player in the world.
Yep. Yeah, but I fully agree on that.
They've a heated driveway? Is that what they can offer in Edmonton? A heated driveway for McDavid?
Sorry, Nick.
I've seen your driveway, Nick. You know, it's about time we got rid of the gravel. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn you, John. Go ahead.
With this club, you mentioned, Berube, that change and him instilling a new structure and system in place and just not being able to play on the ice, obviously. You talked about the intangible pieces, the leadership pieces, the Lowrys and so on. Do you find, given the free agent pool being not overly deep, could you see the Leafs being in a position to be a little bit creative from a trade perspective and seeing what options may be available to them in that respect, as opposed to exclusively fishing in the free agent pool?
Well, I think that when Brad talks about changing the DNA, I think that's got to be on the list. I think that's an important part of it. He does have some institutional knowledge in this league about what a great leader was. I did a lot of work around the Calgary Flames when Brad was there. And he took an active interest in teaching Matthew Tkachuk how to be a leader, how to do that. Matthew Tkachuk is what he is today. Some of that residue is what Brad Treliving taught him. I did a road trip with them, and I don't know if you remember, but Matt got suspended. Matt got a penalty for interfering with a Detroit Red Wing player going off the ice after being kicked out of the game by kicking his leg out. And we were in Montreal the following day, and Brad took him out of the lineup and said that's unacceptable. And there were discussions with Matthew, there were discussions with Keith, his father, about what it takes to be a leader and how to act as a professional. And Brad Treliving deserves a ton of credit for the man and the player that Matthew Tkachuk is. It didn't work out in Calgary. It didn't work in Calgary for both of them. But there's certainly some fingerprints of Brad Treliving on what type of man and player Matthew Tkachuk has become.
John, now before we let you go here, I wanted to ask you about somebody you know very well, and that's Keith Pelley. What makes Keith Pelley tick?
I've never seen anybody with more energy in my life than Keith Pelley. The stories of Allure that nobody has worked later in the night at any place he's worked, and you go into his office at midnight and he's grabbing a nap because he wants to come back and go to work again quickly within an hour. I think he's inquisitive. I think that Keith is inventive. He's been put in a very difficult job. He loves the challenges. And what he will end up doing is redesigning MLSE, in my opinion, to be, I think, more fan friendly. He will redesign MLSE to probably reflect more of what Toronto is as a city. making money is not an issue because the three of us could run MLSE and we'd still make $100 million. And at the same, but the challenge will be is will he be allowed to put people in place to be able to win? Because in the end, we've always seen them make money. We see them always, be the number one TV show. But winning is the key, and that will be the question: is will Keith be allowed, and will Keith allow this management group to win and create a winner? And it's a magnificently huge challenge that doesn't necessarily have an answer today, and it may not have an answer 2 years from now.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.